Time now for a check of our top stories, and we start with the latest on COVID-19. The CDC's decision to change its COVID-19 isolation guidance, making life easier for many, but spurring criticism from both frontline workers and healthcare, along with the airline industry. Now this comes as the Omicron variant continues to spread, with the rate of pediatric infections and hospitalizations also rising recently. Daryl Forges gives us a closer look.
Mounting criticism after the CDC changes its isolation recommendations. Some frontline workers are raising concerns about the move.
This is not the time to be lessening. Our staffing concerns have not been addressed, and measures like this will make it worse instead of better.
On Monday, the CDC announced new guidelines saying people testing positive for COVID-19 only need to stay home for 5 days if they don't have symptoms, and if they wear a mask around others for at least 5 more days, or if their symptoms improve over that time.
If you are asymptomatic and you are infected, we want to get people back to the jobs, particularly those with essential jobs.
The move comes as Omicron cases around the country surge. The U.S. has a 7-day average of more than 237,000 new daily COVID-19 cases, according to data from Johns Hopkins University. And CDC and HHS data shows that pediatric hospitalizations are up nearly 35% nationwide in just the past week.
This Omicron variant is such a game changer in terms of its high transmissibility. It's like this big virus blizzard. That's why you're seeing so many kids getting infected.
Some airline workers are also criticizing the CDC's new guidelines, even as they deal with an Omicron-fueled surge in COVID-19 cases that led to crew shortages and flight disruptions.
How they are going to implement this to make sure that it is only for people who are asymptomatic who are coming back to work, so that people are not forced to come back to work when they're still sick.
I'm Daryl Forges reporting.
And this all comes as more flights have also been canceled worldwide on Wednesday during this Omicron variant surge. Now, according to the tracking website FlightAware, more than 2,200 flights were canceled in the early morning hours of Wednesday. Over 700 of them were within, into, or out of the U.S., and nearly 3,000 flights have been delayed. More than 12,000 flights have been canceled globally since Christmas Eve. In the meantime, Jamaica is preparing for a fourth wave of the pandemic, which is expected to be largely driven by the Omicron variant. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, said it's projected that up to 2,000 people could be hospitalized as a consequence of this variant in Jamaica. And he said that preparations are being made in this regard.
We will have approximately 1,200 beds to support inpatient care for COVID cases. We do have step-down facilities, so where you don't need hospitalization, you stay in other facilities, including being at home with support. But where hospitalization is needed, we have up to 1,200 beds, and I think it's important to make that clear.
Now, during that third wave, more than 1,300 additional temporary staff were contracted to support operations in health facilities, including hospitals, as well as the vaccination program execution. Now, Minister Tufton said maintaining that additional staff is part of the preparation plan.
We are preserving the temporary staff, over 1,300 staff members or employees who have been helping in the field. We have extended their employment to the end of the first quarter of next year. And that is, of course, to ensure that we have the personnel, because one of the bottlenecks would be personnel availability.
In the meantime, multiple cruise ships are back in the U.S. after experiencing COVID-19 outbreaks and being turned away from ports in the Caribbean and Mexico. Carrie Sanders is in Florida with the latest.
The cruise ship industry is dealing with a COVID mess once again after multiple ships returned to U.S. ports with outbreaks. The Koningsdam Holland America ship now back in San Diego after getting turned away from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, because an undisclosed number of crew members tested positive, even though the company says they were fully vaccinated.
They kind of let us know, hey, look, we let the authorities know that some people in the cruise are sick.
Lynn Hoffman was on board.
Everybody in the ship wears, masks. Again, this might be one of the safest places because everybody's vaccinated. We were very careful.
Now back in Florida, the Carnival Freedom was turned away from Bonaire and Aruba after an undisclosed number on board tested positive.
I feel like I was just in a petri dish waiting to get COVID.
Ashley Peterson, a passenger on the 8-day cruise, says it was a nightmare.
I didn't feel safe at all. I basically spent most of the time during the day locked in my cabin.
Royal Caribbean International's Odyssey of the Seas only spent 1 day at sea before turning back to Fort Lauderdale after a passenger tested positive. 4 days later, the same ship was turned away from Curacao and Aruba after more than 50 people came down with COVID. These outbreaks happening despite enhanced COVID safety protocols. All 3 cruise lines requiring adult passengers to show proof of vaccination and a negative COVID test while encouraging mask use indoors.
I had no concerns at all. The cleanliness standards were really good. I think they responded really quickly to contain everything.
Not the holiday season the cruise ship industry was hoping for, as they anticipate a busy 2022.
And switching gears now, every holiday season, lighting up homes and hanging Christmas lights and decorations in Puerto Rico comes with a story and actually reflects the community as a whole. Our Francis Felix reports.
No matter what are the circumstances, Puerto Ricans keep alive their traditions. That's the case of Christmas with the largest celebration. For neighbors of the city of San Lorenzo, just putting lights and Christmas decorations changed their whole atmosphere. A community in Toa Alta have more than 200 arcades around the streets. Every neighbor joined the idea of decorating their house. In Arecibo, a community have what they named the Christmas Corner to spark joy 2 years ago to the community after the loss of 2 family members. La Casa de la Navidad in Caguas is a tradition of 17 years ago, where inside the house you enjoy all types of Christmas decorations. La Calle de Kid is a tradition of 35 years in the city of Carolina. Around 40 houses of the neighbor are decorated to bring happiness to the kids. In Naranjito, a family started a tradition when they found out his son was deaf. They see as a solution the Christmas lighting. In the community, neighbors donate lights and decorations to the family.
From Puerto Rico, Frances Felix.